Hello, Olympia. Today we're talking about the May 14th, 2024 City Council meeting. And it was kind of monumental. There were some really significant, memorable moments in this one.
Indeed.
Yeah.
This is Council in 10.
For the record, I'm Kellie Persbrosset.
And I'm Susan Grisham.
If this is your first time joining us at Council in 10, this is our attempt to recap the City Council meeting that happened the night before in under 10 minutes.
Think of it as the Cliff Notes for City Council.
Okay, so let's get to it, Susan. Hit the button. Boom.
So first, we went through roll call. Council members Lisa Parsley and Danny Madrone were excused, and notably, Council member Madrone is right now in Washington, D.C., meeting with our federal delegation, lobbying for funding for the Deschutes Estuary.
Super important what's going on right now. So it's going to change downtown.
It's a big deal. It took a lot to get here. Right. And then we moved into special recognition. So Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen read a proclamation recognizing the 40th anniversary of the Women's Olympic Trials being held here in Olympia in 1984. It was actually the inaugural Women's Olympic Trials. And so Olympia Trials Legacy Committee Chair Denise Keegan shared background on this really special piece of Olympia history. With the help of the Greater Thurston County area, Olympia was chosen to host the inaugural Women's Olympic Marathon Trials. And that includes attracting those choosing the trial locations with Olympia beer and seafood, beating out New York City for the privilege.
And how you feeling about that, New York?
I prefer pastrami over salmon, so, I have feelings. But when the event was held in 1984, it included 238 marathoners, some 50,000 spectators, 4,500 volunteers, including the cities of Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, the county, St. Martin's College, Intercity Transit, state agencies, local businesses, donors, and running organizations. It really was an all-in kind of event. So Denise shared several events that are happening this week to commemorate this really big anniversary. So on Friday, May 17th, there'll be a reception and dinner at Indian Summer, and notable athletes will be at the event, including the 1984 Olympia Women's Marathon gold medalist Joan Benoit Samuelson, and other members of the 1984 first U.S. Olympic marathon team and other trial athletes. And Marilyn Bevins, a member of the Black Marathons Hall of Fame, will be at that event. Pretty cool. And then on Saturday, May 18th, from 12 to noon, there'll be a meet and greet and panel discussion with the 1984 athletes at Sylvester Park.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. They were talking about, so when they chose Olympia, there was a little skepticism in the running community, like who the Sam Hill or those people. And Frank Shorter, who is a famous runner,
yes,
he came to Olympia and he ran the course. And he gave us some shout outs. He gave us some love about the course and about how welcoming our community was. And that really sort of turned the tide in the opinion about Olympia hosting this very first marathon for women. And it was pretty cool. And he's going to be in town too.
He's going to be at all these events, so pretty cool.
So after that, we entered into public comment, my favorite section. We had two public commenters. The first one was a resident who showed up to challenge council because a council member at a previous meeting had made a comment questioning the need for sort of armed law enforcement being called to respond to businesses when someone is sleeping, to rouse someone who's asleep or who won't leave the business for some reason, and this resident came and pushed back on council about that, recounting her own experience as a local business owner and dealing with people who wouldn't leave their business and feeling the need to call on law enforcement, to OPD, to come and help them move people along. I think it really, in the comments following public comment, it really, they had a pretty good conversation about who should be responding to these sorts of things, and it was an opportunity to remind the community and everyone else about the fact that the city of Olympia has non-law enforcement alternatives to response for things like that. CREW, our crisis response unit, and familiar faces. It was a good conversation, and it's nice that our community engages in that way. They follow and then they follow up. So there's no sitting on your laurels around here. So and then our second commenter was someone who just came back from Nigeria, had a very interesting and fruitful trip there, and was interested in engaging the city around creating a sister city relationship in Nigeria. Council responded, letting them know that the sister city relationship conversation is on the community livability and public safety work plan this year. We currently have a 40-plus year sister city relationship with Kato.
Yes, with Kato, Japan. A delegation of us went there last year, and then in July we have a delegation of students from Olympia going to Kato, and in August the mayor of Kato will be visiting Olympia. So there is a lot of exchange going on there.
Right. And one of the messages that council sent, they wanted to make sure, they wanted to manage expectations, because there's a lot of folks in the community who want to develop sister city relationships between us, and managing those expectations, because besides getting those relationships, you have to grow them, you have to maintain them, and so we are currently working on maintaining and growing our current sister city relationships, and we all know how hard it is to have relationships with your siblings. So, so they take some tending.
So then we moved on to consent calendar. It was a very short consent calendar, but item 4B was pulled for action at another time, and this was related to updating city code regarding the Independent Salary Commission. There was some inquiry regarding removing the criteria of being an Olympia voter to be appointed to the commission. The council decided to table the item, especially since 2 council members were not there to participate in the discussion.
Right. So that was followed by a public hearing. We thought we have those every once in a while. And this was a public hearing on a resolution about fees for redacting body-worn camera footage for a public records request. So someone makes a public records request for body-worn camera footage. The staff have to go through that footage and figure out what needs to be redacted. They were trying to create a fair, reasonable fee structure that reflects the actual work that staff are putting in to redact that. Sean Creer, the city clerk, was the presenter. And during doing this work, he got to work very closely with the records folks and staff of Olympia Police Department, and he said it was the most meaningful work he's done at the city, which is really, he's pretty passionate and excited about the work he does, and as he says, loves transparency. He mentioned that OPD is really pretty good about responding to public records requests, that on average they respond. It takes 3.4 days for them to respond to a public records request, which is like lightning speed. However, if it's a body-worn camera public records request, it can take on average 28 days. So part of this is also helping that customer service. So the resolution was passed by council. There was a public hearing. One person spoke to it. And then the council passed the resolution. But one of the questions that came up in the presentation was around the nonprofits being exempt from fees. It's a pretty broad exemption, and I think council is going to be looping back to that one to consider maybe a future amendment to clarify the nonprofit exemption. So there's that one.
And then we moved on to other business, and the first item was briefing by our police auditor for the 2023 report. And this was sort of a three-part presentation. First, we had Deputy Chief Sam Costello give an overview of the work that the police department did in 2023. And that was an overview of the data for the year, the training that occurred, the 68 policies that were updated. And he also shared that in 2024, the department will be implementing the outcomes of a staffing study and implementing their strategic plan. And they'll be doing more policy updates and working on exploring more regional solutions for reducing crime.
And then the auditor delivered her annual 2023 annual report to council. Our auditor is Sarah Parker. And one of the things, there's some notable things. She noted that there was a 24% reduction in use of force, but there was also a sharp increase in juvenile arrests and use of force with juveniles. And pretty typical with all the reports, 83% of the use of force involved folks who struggled to respond to police commands because of either mental health or substance issues. So there was drugs or alcohol, so it made them difficult to make the good decisions around compliance. Their report reflects the first full year of body-worn cameras usage with the city, so that was interesting. And she had three recommendations. One was about speeding up the audits of critical incidents so that to create a mechanism so that there's more immediate reporting about critical incidents. One was around finding a way to systematically document the crisis response unit's involvement in an incident. And the other was around making some revisions to our body-worn camera policy around when the audio in a camera is turned on or off. All of those recommendations have been embraced and enthusiastically embraced by OPD.
And then we had Social Justice and Equity Commission co-chair Genevieve Kansenko-Chan share the Commission's feedback and recommendations regarding the auditor's report. And much of their feedback actually reflected the same sort of recommendations that the auditor had. And they also wanted a little more information about the youth that are being interacted with, and which apparently is a trend across all of Washington. And a lot of the youth interacting with our police are coming from other communities to kind of,
come play in Olympia.
Have some fun in Olympia. So I think, and the other thing that I wanted to pull out that was noted by Genevieve was how much the Commission appreciates the relationship with the auditor and OPD with all of this work, and making sure that everyone's working together to hold everyone accountable.
Right. And it's a model for the future, hopefully, around community involvement and engagement with law enforcement.
Yeah, really meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And then we had Kelly Drake, our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Coordinator, who came to council to talk about the employee resource groups that have been created. There were 4 of them right now. The Staff of Color, which I am the executive sponsor of. There's a Women's ERG, they're called, LGBTQIA2S+, and a disability one. So these are employee-led and employee-membered groups that are about creating a strong sense of belonging in the organization. It's a place to connect with folks that you have some affinity for, some places that you have sort of commonality, and it's a way to root and feel a little bit at home in the city.
Well, what was really cool, Kelly noted it's some 150 staff are involved in these groups. That's really meaningful.
Right, and they cross over too, because there are some staff of color who are also in the women's group and the LGBTQ one, maybe the disability. So there's a lot of cross-pollination across the groups. I am cross-pollinating into the women's group because they have a whole fishing group, and I'm going to the fly fishing.
So after that item, we moved on to reports, and then the council adjourned into executive session regarding litigation and potential litigation. They were to meet for no more than 90 minutes. From what I understand, they met for about an hour, and then we were adjourned.
Yep, I think we pushed the button. How bad are we? Well, Susan, we blew it. We went over time, like way
over time. So for the first time, so now we have to live with those consequences, whatever they are next week.
And I hope they're not too ridiculous or embarrassing, because it is on tape and I have children. So avoid that. So we'll see next week how it goes. It's kind of like going home late after your curfew. It's like, I don't know what's waiting for me behind that door. All right, okay. All right, well, thank you for joining us. If you watched us live, you can stay tuned, and the council meeting we just talked about is going to come on right after this. You can also watch it on demand, as well as our other program on demand, anytime on olytv3.com.
And if you want to come down to City Hall and hang out with us and watch a city council meeting live and in person, we're usually here at 6 p.m. most Tuesdays.
We'll save a seat for you.
And with that,
We are adjourned.